looked at me with tired eyes, like he'd done this 100 times already. The man from the building office held out a paper, and I could see the words before he even said them. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Carter," he said, "but you have 7 days to leave. This is final." I didn't say anything. I just nodded and took the notice with shaking hands. My name, Helen Carter, was printed in bold at the top. I stood in the doorway of my small apartment, the place I had called home for 18 years. The paint was peeling in the hallway. My knees hurt from standing too long. But this was still my home. Or it had been. I closed the door slowly, locked it out of habit, then just stood there staring at nothing. My fingers brushed against the edge of the old couch I used to read bedtime stories on. Rachel loved Goodnight Moon when she was small. She used to giggle when I made the cow's voice silly. Now, she barely answered my calls. It all happened so fast. First, the hospital bills after I got pneumonia last year. Then the layoffs at the office. I thought I'd be fine. I had savings. I thought Rachel would help, or at least care. I gave up so much for her. Worked night shifts. Skipped dinner some nights, just to pay for her school supplies. I thought she'd be there. I picked up the phone and called her. My voice was weak, but I tried to stay calm. "Rachel, it's Mom. They gave me an eviction notice. I don't know what to do. Can I maybe stay with you for a few days?" There was silence. Then a sigh. "Mom," she said, like I was asking for something huge. "Just sleep in your car a little longer. I'm busy with a product launch. I'll call you when I can, okay?" And then she hung up. I stared at the screen for a long time. My hands were numb. Busy with a product launch. Just sleep in your car. My car. That night, I packed what I could into a few bags. Clothes. My Bible. A photo of me and Rachel at her high school graduation. She looked so proud. So happy. I looked tired, but I didn't care. I had done it. I had raised her alone and gotten her to that moment. I drove to the edge of town and parked under the light of a gas station. It felt safer than most places. I laid the seat back and pulled my coat over me. It didn't help much. The cold crept in anyway. A group of teens passed by laughing. One of them looked at me, then turned away quickly, like I was invisible. Or worse, someone to avoid. I turned my face to the window, trying not to cry. But the tears came anyway. Quiet, slow tears. I whispered to myself, how did it come to this? How did I go from giving everything to having nothing? I thought of Rachel's voice, cold, distant. Not the sweet girl who once cried when she lost it all. Not the daughter I used to sing to sleep. What happened to her? What happened to us? Was this really just who she had become, or was there something I missed? Something broken between us that I never noticed? As the streetlight flickered above me and the night grew colder, I knew one thing. This wasn't the end of the story. It couldn't be. But if this wasn't the end, what was coming next? That night, I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, Rachel's voice echoed in my head. Just sleep in your car a little longer. It stung more than the cold. I kept wondering, how did my daughter become this person? Where did I go wrong? As I lay there under the weak glow of that gas station light, I started remembering the early days. Maybe, I thought, if I walked back through those memories, I'd find the moment things started to change. So that's what I did, right there in the dark, with my coat pulled to my chin and tears drying on my cheeks. I went back in time. Rachel was born on a rainy Tuesday in October. The same night my husband, Frank, held her in his arms and said, "She's going to move mountains, Helen." But Frank didn't get to see her grow up. A heart attack took him just before Rachel turned 7. From then on, it was just me and her. I worked at the diner in the mornings and cleaned offices at night. Some days, I only got 4 hours of sleep. But I always made sure Rachel had lunch money, clean clothes, and someone cheering at every school play. I still remember the look on her face the day she got her first A+ in science. So full of pride. I made her favorite dinner that night. She was a good kid. Ambitious. Sharp. Always dreaming big. But around her last year of high school, something changed. She started pulling away. She was still kind, but distant. I told myself it was just teenage stuff. When she got into a top university, I cried happy tears. I remember saying, "Baby, you did it. You're going to have a better life than I ever could." She hugged me tight, but even that hug felt shorter than usual. To help her, I co-signed on a student loan. I didn't read all the fine print. I just wanted to help her fly. When she struggled to make payments after graduation, I stepped in, quietly covering it with what little I had left. I never told her. I didn't want her to feel guilty. Maybe that was my mistake. When she moved out, I thought it was normal. But the phone calls got shorter. The visits stopped altogether. Holidays became texts. Birthdays became, sorry I've been swamped. I tried not to push. I told myself she was building her future. But a voice inside me whispered, or maybe she's trying to build it without you. Even now, as I sit here in this cold car, I can't shake that feeling. Did I give too much? Or not enough of the right things? Did she feel smothered? Or forgotten? I remember one time, maybe 2 years ago, I asked her if she wanted to come over for dinner. I was making her favorite, beef stew. She said, I have plans, Mom. Maybe another time. But another time never came. And now here I am, alone in this car, still loving her with every part of me, still confused by the woman she's become. But I can't change the past. And the more I think about it, the more I wonder, is Rachel just being selfish? Or is there something deeper behind her coldness? Something I don't understand yet? The thought chills me more than the night air. Because if I don't know why she turned away from me, how can I ever get her back? Just then, a sound outside my car window made me jump. Footsteps. A shadow moved past. I held my breath. Was it safe? Was someone watching me? Or was this just the beginning of something I wasn't prepared for? The shadow passed, and the footsteps faded, but my heart kept racing. I gripped my keys tight in one hand and whispered, You're okay, Helen. You're okay. But deep down, I didn't believe it. I didn't feel okay. I felt invisible. Broken. That night was the first time I understood how truly alone I was. When morning came, my back ached, my mouth was dry, and my eyes burned from crying. I drove a few blocks over and parked behind an auto shop that looked like it had been there for 50 years. It was quiet. There were no cameras or signs saying no trespassing. That was good enough for me. I stayed there for 2 days. I didn't turn the car on unless I had to. Gas was expensive, and I had to make it last. I ate a few crackers I had in my purse and sipped from a water bottle slowly, pretending it was enough. I still showered at a gym downtown. If I went early, no one asked questions. But hiding was exhausting. Every time I saw someone I knew from church or the old office, I ducked down in the driver's seat, heart pounding. I didn't want pity. I didn't want anyone to see what I'd become. On the third morning, just as the sun peeked over the shop roof, someone knocked on my window. I jolted upright. A man in his early 50s stood there holding 2 cups of coffee. He wore a grease-stained cap and a kind smile. Didn't mean to scare you, he said. I just noticed you've been here a few days. Figured you could use this. I rolled down the window just a crack. I'm fine. He handed me the coffee anyway. No strings. Just hot coffee. I'm Kevin. I run the shop. You're safe here. That was the first warm drink I'd had in days. Kevin didn't ask questions. He didn't push. He just nodded and let me be. But that tiny moment, someone seeing me, really seeing me, stayed with me all day. Later that week, I met 2 women who changed everything. I was sitting on a bench near the community center, trying to charge my phone discreetly, when they sat down beside me. One was in her 60s with a purple scarf and kind eyes. The other was younger, maybe in her 30s, wearing a faded backpack. You living in your car too? The older woman asked gently. I froze. Should I lie? Pretend I had a home and was just passing time? But something inside me cracked. Yes, I whispered. They nodded like it wasn't shocking. Like it wasn't shameful. That was me 2 years ago, the younger one said. Now I help at the shelter when I can. We sat in silence for a bit. Then they told me about other women, mothers, nurses, teachers, who had lost everything, just like me. I wasn't the only one. I thanked them but didn't go with them. Not yet. I wasn't ready. Later that day, I ran into someone I used to work with, Vivian. She looked surprised to see me. Her eyes darted to my messy hair and worn clothes. I could tell she was trying not to ask. We talked for a few minutes. She told me her son was graduating soon. I nodded, pretending I was fine. When she asked if I wanted to grab lunch, I smiled and said, maybe another day. I knew she was trying to help, but I couldn't handle anyone seeing the truth. I couldn't accept a handout, not yet. My pride wouldn't let me. But that night, as I lay back in my car again, wrapped in a thin blanket, I asked myself something I hadn't before. How long can I keep doing this? How long before pride becomes poison? I stared up at the roof of the car, counting the tiny cracks in the ceiling fabric. Kevin's coffee, the women on the bench, Vivian's awkward kindness, they were little flickers of light in my darkness. But light alone doesn't fix things. Was I strong enough to let someone truly help me? And if I wasn't, what was I really holding on to? That question followed me all night. Was I strong enough to let someone help me? I didn't have an answer. But I knew one thing: I couldn't keep doing this. My body ached from sleeping curled up. I was tired of hiding, tired of pretending. And deep down, I still believed that if anyone would understand, it would be Rachel. Even after everything, she was my daughter. Maybe she didn't realize how bad things had gotten. Maybe she'd open the door and say, "Why didn't you tell me sooner, Mom?" Maybe all this time, I was the one who needed to reach out again. So I did. I drove to her condo late in the afternoon. It was in the new part of town, all glass and silver with clean sidewalks and fresh landscaping. I parked 2 blocks away. I didn't want her neighbors to see me climbing out of a dirty car. I took a minute to fix my hair in the mirror, wiped under my eyes, and whispered, "You can do this." The walk to her building felt longer than it was. My heart beat faster with each step. By the time I stood in front of her door, I was shaking. I knocked gently at first. No answer. Then again, louder. Finally, the door opened. Rachel stood there in workout clothes, her hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked surprised, but not happy. "Mom," she said, brows already drawn together. "What are you doing here?" I tried to smile. I didn't know who else to turn to. I've been living in my car. I just need a place to rest. A week. That's all. She glanced behind her, like she was afraid someone might hear. "You could have called first." "I did," I said softly. "You didn't answer." She sighed and stepped out into the hallway, closing the door behind her. "I have meetings. People coming over. I can't just have you staying here, Mom. It's not a good time." "I don't need much," I said quickly. "I'll sleep on the floor. I'll leave before anyone wakes up." But she was already shaking her head. "You being here would stress me out. You don't get it. I'm trying to keep things together. A crying mother in my living room? That's not what I need right now." I felt the words hit me like ice water. Crying mother. That's all I was to her now. A problem. An inconvenience. I took a shaky breath, but the tears came anyway. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. I turned and walked down the hallway before she could see more. She didn't follow me. She didn't even call after me. By the time I reached my car again, I collapsed into the driver's seat and covered my mouth to muffle the sobs. I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just sadness, it was something deeper. A kind of break inside me. I had held on to the hope that Rachel would help me. That even after all the silence, all the distance, some part of her still remembered who I was. What I had done for her. But I saw it in her eyes. She didn't see a mother anymore. She saw a stranger. That night I didn't eat. I didn't move. I sat frozen, staring at the dark ceiling of the car. For the first time since Frank died, I asked myself something I never thought I would. Is life even worth continuing? If my own daughter could turn her back on me like that, what was left? But then, out of nowhere, I remembered Kevin's gentle smile. The women on the bench. Vivian's awkward kindness. Little flickers of light. Maybe, just maybe, I wasn't completely alone. Maybe the love I needed wasn't going to come from the place I expected. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But I knew I couldn't keep sitting here, waiting for Rachel to change. If I wanted to survive this, I would have to find a new way forward. But where does a woman like me begin again, when everything, even her own child, has let her go? The next morning, I didn't move for a long time. I just sat there in the driver's seat, staring at nothing, numb from the night before. Rachel's words echoed in my ears. "You'll only stress me out." I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even hurt in the same way. Something inside me had gone quiet, like the part that kept hoping for her love had finally stopped knocking. And that silence, it was terrifying. I didn't know what to do. But somehow, my hand started the car. I didn't have a plan, just a need to move, to breathe different air. I drove back to the only place where I had felt the tiniest bit seen. Kevin's shop. When I pulled in, I didn't expect anyone to notice. But Kevin came out of the garage with a rag in his hands and a soft look in his eyes. "Rough night?" he asked gently. I didn't answer. I just nodded. "Come inside," he said. "You don't have to talk. Just sit. I've got fresh coffee." I followed him into the shop's office, where it smelled like old leather and motor oil. He poured me a cup and handed it over without a word. After a while, I whispered, "I went to see my daughter yesterday." He didn't ask what happened. He just listened. And for the first time, I let the words out. Not all of them, but enough. Enough for him to understand the shape of my grief. Kevin nodded slowly. Then he said, "You don't need to stay in your car, Helen. I know someone. Her name's Claire. She runs a place, not a shelter exactly. It's quieter. It's safe. She only takes women who really want to start over. I think you'd like her." I hesitated. The old voice inside me rose up. "You don't need help. You'll be fine. Just figure it out." But another voice, softer this time, asked, "What if this is the beginning, not the end?" I agreed to meet her. That afternoon, Kevin drove me to a small, ivy-covered house just outside the city. There was no sign, no security gates. It looked like someone's grandmother still lived there. Claire opened the door. She was in her 60s, with soft gray hair and the kind of eyes that made you feel like she already knew your story. She didn't ask me to explain anything. She just said, "Come in, sweetheart. We'll make some tea." I didn't cry. I didn't speak much. But for the first time in weeks, I sat at a real table. I drank from a real mug. I slept in a real bed. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm. And clean. Over the next few days, I helped around the house. Claire ran it with care and quiet dignity. She didn't talk about people's pasts. She talked about their futures. She believed everyone had one. There were 4 other women living there. One used to be a nurse. Another used to own a bakery. One was just 18. Each of them had lost something. Each of them was rebuilding. And somehow, in the middle of my pain, I found pieces of myself I hadn't seen in years. One morning, Claire handed me a small notebook. "You ever write your thoughts down?" she asked. I shook my head. "Try it," she said. "Not for anyone else. Just for you." That night, I opened the journal and wrote 3 words. "I'm still here." Something about seeing it written down made me feel stronger. Not fixed, but real. As days passed, I started volunteering with Claire. We organized food baskets, helped women fill out forms. I didn't have much, but I had time, and hands, and kindness, and somehow, the more I gave, the more I felt like myself again. Then one day, while I was unpacking canned goods, I looked up and saw myself in the mirror across the hallway. Hair pulled back. I soft but steady. I didn't see a failure. I didn't see a woman living in a car. I saw Helen, and for the first time in a long time, I liked who I saw. But just as I started to feel whole again, my phone rang. I checked the screen. It was Rachel. I froze. Was she calling to check on me, or did she want something? And if she wanted something, was I strong enough to say no? I stared at Rachel's name on my phone screen for a long time. A few weeks ago, I would have answered it in a heartbeat, hoping for kindness, craving connection, desperate for her to see me again. But now, I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the green button. Then I pressed it. "Hello," I said, my voice steady, but not eager. "Hey," Rachel replied, like we'd just spoken yesterday. "Hope you're doing okay. Listen, I need a favor." "No, how are you?" "No, I'm sorry. Just a favor. I'm trying to get in touch with Aunt Louise," she continued. "She hasn't responded to my emails. You still have her number, right? Can you reach out for me?" There it was, clear as day. She didn't call because she missed me. She didn't call because she was worried. She needed something. I closed my eyes and took a breath. Claire's words came back to me. "You don't have to prove your worth to anyone, especially not someone who can't see it." I opened my mouth, and what came out surprised even me. "I'm not in a place to help you right now, Rachel," I said gently. "I'm focused on helping myself." Silence on the line. I could almost hear the shock in her breathing. "Wait, what?" she asked, like I had spoken another language. You're saying no? Yes, I said, firmer this time. I'm saying no. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just went quiet. And then she said, "Okay, I guess I'll figure it out," and hung up. I stared at the phone for a few seconds. My hand trembled, but my heart felt calm. Not happy, but peaceful. Like I had just stood up for the version of me I'd buried long ago. That day, I went back to the shelter and told Claire everything. She didn't say much, just hugged me and whispered, "That's a big step, Helen." And it was, because I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was beginning to grow. The very next week, Claire handed me a flyer from the community center. They're looking for someone to help with admin work, part-time. I thought of you. I hadn't worked in months. I didn't feel ready, but something inside me whispered, try. I went to the interview in clothes from the donation closet, my hair pulled back with a borrowed clip. My hands were sweating, and my voice shook a little, but I told them about my years of office experience, about how I kept things running while managing too much on too little sleep. They offered me the job on the spot. It wasn't glamorous. Answering phones, filing papers, sorting mail, but it felt like something solid under my feet again. A reason to get up in the morning. A reason to hold my head higher. And then, unexpectedly, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in years. Mark Jennings. He was picking up his niece from a painting class at the center. We used to work in the same building back when Frank was still alive. Back when life felt simpler. He smiled when he saw me. "Helen Carter." I laughed. In the flesh. We talked for 20 minutes about work, life, the years that flew by too fast. He didn't treat me like someone broken. He didn't ask what had happened. He just saw me the way Kevin and Claire had. Before he left, he said, "I always admired how strong you were. I don't think I ever told you that." His words stayed with me all night. Because maybe, after all this time, I was finally starting to believe them. I looked around my little room at the shelter, still small, still temporary, but it didn't feel like the end anymore. It felt like a beginning. Still, I couldn't help but wonder, would Rachel ever realize what she'd lost? Would she ever try to know the version of me I was becoming? Not the mother she dismissed, but the woman I was rediscovering? And if she did, would it be too late? The weeks that followed felt different. Lighter. Not easier, but clearer. Every morning I woke up early, got dressed, and walked to the community center with a little notebook tucked in my bag, the same one Claire had given me. I wrote in it every day. Not big thoughts, just little ones. I got through the whole day without crying. I helped an old woman fill out her insurance forms and made her laugh. I smiled at myself in the mirror today, and I meant it. I didn't tell Rachel I had a job, or that I was reconnecting with people. I didn't need to. For once, my story was mine. Not for her approval. Not for anyone's. Then one Tuesday morning, something unexpected happened. A young woman showed up at the shelter with a camera crew. Claire pulled her aside, arms crossed, suspicious. I thought she was going to send them away, but the girl held up a letter and said she'd gotten permission to do a short segment for a local human interest piece. Something about second chances. Claire looked at me, then back at the woman. Finally, she nodded. They didn't ask me to speak, just filmed us sorting food and laughing with a few of the other women. It was simple. Honest. I didn't think much of it. But 2 days later, Kevin burst into the shelter holding his phone. "You're on the news," he said, grinning like a proud big brother. I blinked. "What?" He pulled up a short clip. There I was, stacking canned beans and laughing with another woman about expired labels. A small graphic at the bottom read, "Women rebuilding from rock bottom, one house, big hope." It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. I thought it would fade like most news stories, but it didn't. Someone shared it on Facebook, then a few others. By the weekend, it had over 40,000 views. And then, Rachel called. This time I didn't freeze. I didn't panic. I didn't even feel anxious. I just stared at the screen as it rang. I answered on the third ring. "Hi, Mom," she said, trying to sound casual. "So, I saw the video." I didn't say anything. I let her talk. "My coworker sent it to me. Everyone in the office was watching it. They didn't even realize it was you until I said something." Her voice was different. Tight. "I think we should talk," she said next. I miss you. That sentence hung in the air like smoke. I miss you. It didn't sound like love. It sounded like damage control. Still, I didn't slam the door. I told her we could meet for coffee. Somewhere neutral. Somewhere public. Somewhere I could leave if I had to. When I hung up, I stared out the window for a long time. A part of me still wanted her to mean it. Another part of me knew better. But this time, I would be ready. Because now, I wasn't walking into that conversation as a mother begging to be seen. I was walking in as Helen, the woman who had found her own worth in a quiet shelter in a borrowed room, among strangers who saw her better than her own daughter had. Still, one question lingered in my heart as I prepared to see her again. Would Rachel finally see me, or was this just another performance? The cafe was quiet that morning, just the soft hum of an espresso machine and the clink of ceramic cups. I got there 5 minutes early. Old habit, I guess. I sat by the window, sunlight pouring in, warming the wooden table beneath my fingers. I wore the blue sweater Claire had gifted me during my first week at the shelter. Simple, soft, but I felt strong in it. Rachel walked in 2 minutes later. She looked tired. Her eyes darted around the cafe like she wasn't sure she wanted to be seen here. She spotted me and smiled, that same small smile she used when she wanted something but didn't want to ask for it directly. "Hi, Mom," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. "You look good." I nodded. "Thank you." There was silence. She fidgeted with a napkin, tearing off little corners. "I saw the video again last night. You came across well." "Well?" I raised an eyebrow, careful not to sound defensive. She hesitated. "I mean strong. Like someone who's gone through something and made it out." "I have," I said simply. Another silence. Then she leaned in slightly. "I've been thinking. Maybe we could start fresh. Maybe you could come stay with me for a while, just until things settle. I have a guest room now." My heart didn't leap. It didn't break either. It just stayed still. Peacefully still. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I had poured everything into. The child I once held while crying over overdue bills. The teenager who stopped answering calls. The adult who told me to just sleep in my car a little longer. And now, here she was offering a room. Not out of love, I realized, but to make the noise go away. To fix the PR issue. To patch a story she hadn't cared to write until the spotlight turned to her. I took a slow sip of my coffee, then set the cup down. "Rachel," I said gently, "I needed to lose everything to find myself." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "I used to think being your mother was my entire identity. That if I wasn't helping you, sacrificing for you, I didn't matter. But I was wrong. I matter because I'm me." She sat back, stunned. "So you're saying no?" I smiled. Not with bitterness, not with pride. Just truth. I'm saying I don't need a room. I have a home now, and I finally understand the difference. She didn't respond. Not right away. Maybe she didn't know how. I stood up, pulled on my coat. As I reached for my bag, I paused and looked at her one last time. "I hope you find your peace too, Rachel." "Truly." Then I walked out. No tears. No regrets. Just a sense of calm I hadn't felt in years. Outside, the sun was bright but gentle. I walked slowly down the street, past families chatting over breakfast, past a bookstore with a sign in the window that read, "New chapters begin every day." I smiled. That night, back in my small but warm apartment, I opened the window and let the breeze in. I lit a candle, lavender, Claire's favorite, and wrote in my journal. Today I chose peace. I chose me. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I was no longer lost. I had found a door I was meant to walk through, even if I had to stand in the cold for a long time before I saw it. And sometimes, being left outside is exactly what it takes to find the life you were meant to live.